Hi friends, today I'm going to just show you, I'm playing with hot press paper and cold press paper with watercolor pencils. And a number of you have asked me, like, is there a specific paper they should use that works best? Honestly, the way I feel is it's very similar to your regular watercolor painting, what you prefer. So cold press is just, to me, some of the pros are that texture. And I believe that texture with the cold press, even with your watercolor pencils, adds that character. It kind of grabs the pigment, looks a little bit more organic to me. It holds the water really well. And I think it just really allows a bit more of an expressive style because it's much more organic. So a couple of the cons to that might be less texture. You might not be able to, on a cold press, achieve those really fine, sharp, precise lines. And sometimes it does require a little bit more water to blend the colors than your hot press might require because it's going into the little grooves and such. I'm going to use just a couple colors here. And by the way, I'm using, sorry for that camera bump, my Artistos, which I've shared a couple times. I love them. This is the 72 set. They also have a 48 set. I will find my link for those and share them down below in the description. So also, you know, when you're using cold press paper, it's maybe going to feel like, to some of you, it's not quite as smooth a finish as hot press. Again, for me, I like that. You know, so it's just really kind of personal to you what type of look, just like with watercolors, what type of look you prefer with your artwork. One thing I did find is, and let me just show you, is with the hot press paper, I felt like not only smoother, but more sharper lines, a little bit easier to get detail, which again, I'm not a detail person, so that doesn't bother me. I was able to move the color pencil around a little bit more. By the way, this is my 140-pound cold press Artisto. You know, I love these. I collect them. I journal them. I put on the front of them, you know, this was for what season, and I can always refer back to them. So I love that. Okay, so let me just show you here. This is on hot press, which just means when they made the paper, they used a hot press, almost like an iron. Therefore, it's really, really, really smooth. Perfect for illustration. And again, those sharp lines and details, maybe real intricate work. Cold press is going to have that beautiful texture that I love. That's just my preference. So let me just show you here. I'm going to just using the side of my pencil. This is that Watercolor Artisto pencil. And I'm going to also do that actually on here, so you can maybe see the differences here. So already you can see there's just more texture, because what's happening is this goes on much smoother, almost like crayon-like, because it's smoother. Here, a lot of the pencil is sitting and coming across, coloring across the tops of those deep grooves in a cold press paper. So as you can see here, there's already a difference. Again, I like this. You may like this. It's really just preference. What I have noticed is I like to use a watercolor pen. Either this one just happens to be my Meeden. I really like it. And a water brush just has this, let me open this for you. This one doesn't have any in there right now, but you just fill this little chamber with water, and it's perfect for plein air. If you paint outdoors, you don't have to bring a water cup. And usually the bristles are just, to me, a little bit stiffer. That's just my experience with them. But you can also, of course, use your 8 round by Princeton. If you happen to have been able to grab my brushes, they're sold out now. It was just a limited release. This is also the 8 round. And I'm just going to get my brush wet and show you here. So again, on hot press, very smooth, and I can really move around that paint because it's on a slick surface. I can pull it out and get the lighter values. So it's pretty easy to work with here. And if you notice, I can look at the sharp lines on the edges. Much easier to get kind of that sharp line. So if you like details, you're going to really like that. Now here is the cold press, which is that textured paper. Blends beautifully, but it does have a little bit more of an uneven look. You can see part of the cold press paper showing through, which again, I love that organic look. So let me hold these up close so you can see that. So this is the hot press, and this is the cold press. It may look subtle here, but if you can tell, the lines are much crisper on the hot press than the cold press. I don't really see a difference in, creating a wash here, which just means I'm going from darker to lighter. They were both very easy to work with there. But what I do see here that I want to point out is you can see that texture of the paper showing through. Not so much on the hot press, it's much smoother. Again, preference, I like that. You may like the hot press. Let's just play a little bit more here. I felt like too, I had a little bit more time to play with the hot press. The cold press seemed to absorb a little bit quicker, and this seemed to flow a little bit longer. It tended to sit on top of the paper a little bit longer, where this cold press, it kind of, it soaked it up. So let's try and create, let's do this. Let's see if there's any differences in some glazing. So again, let me find my blue. Oh, here's a blue. So here's a blue marker. I'm going to, and we're going to see how well it does with creating a glaze type effect or layering. See if there's any difference between the cold press and the hot press. Now I'll do that same thing over here. Again, you can maybe immediately see how a lot more of the texture of the paper is showing through, where this is a little bit more solid. There we go. And then I'm going to add some red in and see what kind of purple we get. You can also, by the way, use your watercolor pencils like regular watercolor pencils, like this with no water. That's kind of up to you. So already just doing that, this was a pretty warm red, by the way. It's a little bit orangey. So the warm bias is going to go more towards the yellows. So as you can already see here, there's a purplish color in the middle. But now wait till I blend them with a little water and you will really notice it. Same here, you've got that purple. I'm going to hold these up too, because I think this is really the biggest difference here is, so here's the hot press, and you can see how it's pretty smooth. And the cold press, you're getting a lot more of that white paper showing through. let's go ahead and get them wet, and let me show you here. So I'm going to do a wash. There's the blue, very smooth, very even. Now here's the red, and then let's go into the middle here. So I don't know if you can tell here, but I can really play with this paint for quite a while because it's sitting on top of that hot press paper. And as you can see here, look at the middle, a really nice, pretty smooth transition. And now let's do the same thing on the cold press. So getting that wet, getting this wet, and now into the middle here. So it's very similar. I mean, I don't think there's like this huge difference, but definitely a difference. So here is the hot press, here is the cold press. Hopefully you can see that difference. Let me hold it sideways here. This is a bit smoother. This tends to look a little bit almost granulated, but yet it's still a nice smooth transition. So there you go. Another thing, let's see how it does with this. Let's create a petal, and I'm going to use yellow. So let's get that goldish yellow. Let me find that. Here it is. And let's create a petal here. And color it in with the yellow. And the reason I wanted to do this, I want to see how well it does as far as mixing on paper an actual petal. So let's do the same thing here. Got our petals here. Just color those in. I really don't always like to use the point of these either, because watercolor pencils, as opposed to a regular color pencil, the core is really soft. So be kind of careful. That's another reason why when you sharpen them, if you use, let me grab my sharpener. I don't ever put my watercolor pencils in an electric sharpener. It's just so jarring, and this core is so soft, and it also eats up a lot of your pencil in an electric sharpener. So I don't do that with mine, because you can break this tip, this core, down inside your pencil. And that's when, if you've noticed, you're sharpening a pencil and the lead just falls out. It's because it broke inside, the core broke inside. The other thing is, if you're using a sharpener, I do that occasionally, and I turn the sharpener. I don't turn the pencil. And that is a little bit easier on these as well. The best way is really to use like an X-Acto knife, something like this, and just anchor your hand and sharpen your pencil that way. You can also, one second, buy these little fun things, and they're sandpaper, and you can sharpen your pencil that way. So I think those are a lot gentler on your pencils, and but especially what I found is that electric sharpener, every time it sharpens, it uses up about a 1/4 inch or so of my pencil, and I don't like that. So that's just my thoughts on that. Back to this little flower. Let's go ahead and we'll put, well, number one, let's do this first. So here's our hot press. Here is our cold press. I'm going to wet my brush and just start pulling out that yellow. But now what I want to do is wipe off my brush and now go into it this way. Wipe my brush again. That way I have it stays light out here on the outer edge. So I'm coming into from lighter to darker. And then what I'm going to do is go in here once this dries and add a layer of maybe orange or red in there, which I could have done that to begin with. I could have done like this with the yellow pencil and then colored in the middle with an orange or a red, and it would kind of do the same thing. Here's the hot press. So I'm pulling that water, that pigment out, just kind of blending it. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, tap it off, and go from light to dark. So I'm going from the outside to the inside, like that. And look at the beautiful blend. Now, definitely this is a bit smoother again, but both really pretty. Just this one's smoother, this one's got that texture, just like watercolors. Now, what I'll do, if this is dry, which it looks like it is, I'm going to use, we'll use this red. And I'm going to go in the center. Now, if it's wet in there, it's going to have a really soft line. Okay, it's pretty dry. So I'm just going to color in at the core there. I just want to see how glazing and layers works with these. So here's our red core. Now let's take a brush and let's wet that. There we go. Now I didn't put a lot of that red in there, so it's not quite so dark. I'm going to soften that line there. The other way I could add to that inside is just take the paint directly from the pencil, and I actually like that approach a lot better. I feel like it's much more similar to using watercolors. So you've got that nice little blend. Let's do that here. This is dry. Now I just wet that pencil, so it's going to be really soft. So let me grab a different red pencil. Let's see here. This again is the 72 colors. I love them. You really get a lot of beautiful colors. You get these. Aren't those pretty? And here is the last tray. You get 3 trays. So here is some more reds. I think I will use, let's see here. Maybe this one. No, this one. This is called Ruby Red. I'm going to use that in the middle here again. I find doing it this way, layering this way, I think I get a better result with grabbing the paint right directly off the pencil when I'm layering. Just kind of my experience. There we go. I'm going to wash and rinse my brush a bit. So there's that technique. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did here. Oops, wrong pencil. And grab some of that off of my brush, off of my pencil rather. When you do this, by the way, be careful, because until that core dries, it's going to be really soft. And look how much more paint I can get in there. And then I can go in and just soften that, wash, rinse my brush, just like regular watercolors. Soften those edges. I don't typically have lift my watercolor pencils. They're a little bit more challenging to lift, I thought. We could try that here if you like. Let's see how it does. So here's the cold press. I'm just going to wet an area. Let's see how well it lifts. Oh, this is doing actually pretty good. That purpley blue is pretty easy to lift. Let me take a napkin here. So that lifted pretty well. Let's see how it does on the hot press. I just want to try all these things so you can really see if there's a difference aside from just what you prefer. So I'm wetting that. And so both of them lifted about the same on the hot press, on the cold press. Basically, the difference is really going to be what type of look you like and what your preference is, just like in watercolor painting, hot press or cold press. All right, everybody, I hope that was informative. I hope I had some good little tips in there, and have fun with these. They're really a lot of fun and so many different ways you could paint with them, draw with them. You can also go in and maybe do some shading. So let me show you this last thing. Well, let's use this. Say I want to shade this side. The opposite complementary color on the color wheel of red is going to be this green. So if we add green to this side, say I want to shade this side, I use its opposite, and that's with any colors. And when you combine opposites on the color wheel, it creates kind of a muted color. Almost stuck my brush in my coffee. So let's just wet that. And again, so easy to move around on here, this hot press paper. I really have to kind of get used to using that. So this was lighter value down here. So you can see there, it creates kind of this muted, shadowy color. Same with if I added blue's opposite, which would be orange, it would be the same type of thing here, which I'll show you before we end here, because I think things like this are really helpful. So to create a shadow on that blue, the opposite of blue would be orange. And if I add that to this blue, it creates a wonderful shadow. All right, happy painting, have fun with these. I will link all these supplies down below. And just want to mention, I do have my beginners online course. It's got 17 lessons, worksheets. It's the core. If you're a beginner, it's the core of watercolor. The principles, the introduction to your brushes and things like that. Such a great course. You can go through it as much as you want. It doesn't expire. And in the end, you create a beautiful flower. So if you're interested in something like that, I would really encourage you to go and check that out. And it puts everything in one place for you. So you don't have to skip around looking for kind of piecemealing videos. It's all in one place for you. And I'll link that below as well. All right, happy painting, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I love all my regulars, and I love hearing your successes and how much you're enjoying watercolors. And I will see you all soon.